Make yourself at home.
Yeah. Okay, so you were saying so that basically over the course of that 2 weeks, his body was changing.
Yeah, it changed. Obviously, there was a lot of muscle mass, and then the organs started shutting down, and that was that.
And I guess one thing I'm curious about is I'm not a photographer, but I'm the only one up here who's not a photographer, but as a photographer, was there like something particular about making images of somebody as their body is changing so dramatically?
I want to say that during that time I wasn't thinking at all.
Yeah.
There was some type of disconnect between me and what I was seeing, and me and what was going on. So I wanted to portray exactly what I was seeing at the moment of, and it's interesting because there was because there was such a disconnect, I didn't even also notice what exactly I was photographing until I saw the end product, which it took me maybe 5 months to develop those roles, so I didn't see those photos, and when I saw them, I couldn't look at them for an entire year.
Sure.
It was very triggering, and I was like, wow, I actually documented that. Some things are very, very difficult to look at. Even till this day, I try to not see certain images. I think the one time I was showing it to you a year ago, I was like, here, you can look at them, I can't.
Yeah.
So it was very, I guess the closest thing I can say is that it was intuitive, and because I was so determined on honoring his wish, and also showing what was going on and showing how, not necessarily how his body was changing, but also what was happening in that environment, and the fact that there was something in me that was like, why is nobody doing anything about it? And I think that's ultimately why I want to show these images, because it's like just seeing somebody in such a vulnerable state and just being the observer, it's very conflicting, because there's a tendency of wanting to rescue, but also knowing that you have to let this process naturally unfold.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard.
Yeah. I mean, the images are super powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of expand on that question and ask, obviously as everyone can see, it's very powerful and kind of vulnerable images that are in the space here, and they tell such a immensely universal story about love and about connection and about, going through thick and thin with a partner. The process of photographing the death of one, has it kind of changed the way you view photography? Has it kind of informed your processes going forward? And how do you photograph differently now that you've expressed yourself through these images on the walls?
That's a very good question. I remember taking a very long break from photography after making these images. Took a break from the photo walk. I took a break from anything having to do with that, even though ironically I was working at a photo lab at the time. And I guess in a way it was kind of helpful that I wasn't making any images, but I was helping to, I was doing my job. When I came back to photography, there was a need in me to be able to just seize the moment in any way that I can. And I think that's been my approach now to photography, knowing that photography is a tool where we can we can make memories and moments tangible, and we can freeze that moment in time and make it durable. We can make it long lasting. And it's, especially with this, it's the one thing we have after a person passes. It's the one thing that we have that still connects us with the person. And so it's definitely more intentional. Still more intuitive. Like, it's not like I'm going out there and I'm looking for an image to make or anything of the sort. But even like in photographing friends, like you'll see there's some images where I photographed my friend Karina, for example, who I've known my whole life. And when I do that, like, I just want to just be able to have something that connects me and keeps me connected with the subject or the moment.
Thank you. I know that photography was also something that brought you and Juan together, right, to some degree. And I'm thinking of, in particular, through, I'm going to say these words and it's not on the screen, but through the Broken Free Project. I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about, because maybe everyone doesn't know what that project was,
Right.
and how that, to describe it to us, but also how that was a kind of point of connection for the two of you.
Absolutely. It all happened simultaneously. So around the time when I started Broken Free, I had just moved in with Juan. And it was around the time that I had to start going to therapy because I was experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder from a previous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I was, I think, in my second year at FIU. And I was studying photography, obviously, but my professor, Peggy Nolan, which most of you know, she's amazing
wonderful,
photographer and amazing professor. She said, I know that you make good images, but why don't you start making images that you can connect with, like show us who you are. And I did not want to show who I was. I was somebody who I was comfortable being, which is ironic because also at the time I was doing modeling for a bit, and that was very short-lived because I didn't feel like that was me. I just didn't like being in front of the camera. So I didn't make any portraits or self-portraits or anything of the sort. And so I remember sitting with Juan, and I call him Juan, his nickname's Johnny, but for me, he's always gonna be Juan. So I sat with him and I told him, my professor wants me to make pictures that are about me or something that I care about or something of the sort. And we sat and he's like, well, why don't you start why don't you connect with people that have maybe gone through what you've gone through, and maybe you can find a way to photograph that. And that's how Broken Free was born. So it's, as Alon mentioned earlier, Broken Free is a project. It was an 8-year project where I got to photograph about 24 survivors of abuse here in Miami. It was a process where it was all based on social media. Like, I would just announce it, and so every person that I photographed actually came to me. So it was almost like a call for volunteers, a call for participants, and they came to me and said, I want to share my story with you, and I want you to take my photo. And that's how the process was. It lasted about 8 years because it was very difficult to photograph people for this project. Hearing every single story was rather triggering. I had to take breaks every now and then, but it was also very cathartic. In that, I got to also find a way to also come to terms with what I went through. And involving Juan in the process, he then realized he had a lot of work to do. So
through that project, he himself came to that.
So he came to me one day, which is so funny. He was like, hey, I want to be a part of this. And I'm like, you're already a part of it. You're the person that interviews the people. He's like, I want to share my story.
Wow.
This was in 2017, so this was 4 years after we had started the project. And we were living in Portland, Oregon at the time. We flew to Miami, to West Kendall, to his old neighborhood where everything took place. Wow. And that's where I photographed him. And so I got to hear stories that he had never shared till that day. And we had already been together 6-7 years at that point. And he got to unload a lot.
Wow.
Because his story was so powerful, I decided to end the project with him. I think his story was like the perfect way to bring everything together. And also because he had transitioned. But yeah, we did connect a lot through that project. It was very vulnerable in many ways, like collectively and individually. Obviously, like after every session, we got to sit down and talk about it. We got to hold space for one another to regulate our emotions. And then, he started seeing a therapist. He started doing his own work as well. And
thank you. I mean, it's just so striking how every part of what you just said takes so much bravery, so much trust, so much honesty with self, and a willingness to kind of share one's most vulnerable experiences. And I think this whole exhibition and all of the work that you've done have all of those elements. I mean, you can see all these people as they walk in, your face, it's like all the love, everyone here for you. It's beautiful, but I just, I want to just acknowledge the bravery involved, even in sitting up here
I
tonight.
appreciate it.
So thank you. Yeah. Everyone come on in. If you'd close the door, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so as Rebecca was, I suppose photography plays a lot of roles. It's record making, it's
Yeah.
documentation of history. It's also a way to communicate and resonate with other people, and catharsis. So
Yeah.
catharsis and bravery, as Rebecca said. I mean, in order to be willing to be photographed during such a hard time in your life takes a huge amount of bravery
Absolutely.
and self-awareness. So I'd like to just talk about kind of Juan's feelings around the process when you were taking pictures of him. And I suppose he was, as we were saying, very vulnerable, but also extremely brave and extremely kind of willing to share and trust his journey with you. So I'd just like to maybe speak about, what kind of you guys spoke about during the process.
I think for him, thinking back on it, I wish I would have asked him how he felt with being photographed. I didn't. I think we were just so focused on his healing and on him getting well. He was obviously focused on trying to stay alive, but also maybe feeling how his body was changing. And I guess at one point, he was resisting till the very end. He didn't, even on his deathbed, he was still, his last words were, "I don't want to go." And there was so much focus on just being alive and being so present that we weren't thinking about anything else. So it's interesting because I just, again, had the camera, and the camera was serving as my eye, as an extension of me. And it was like if it was like an invisible contraption at the moment. We just were there, present. And he was used to me taking photos of him because I've done that since the very beginning of our relationship. But yeah, I guess at that moment, I don't know, it really was just an extension of me, so to speak.
Thank you. One thing that, I don't know, again, I'm not a photographer and there's some in the room and you're one, but I'm curious, and you may not know the answer to this, but I'm curious if there is like a kind of, the word isn't genre, but if there's a history or a story, or if other people have kind of documented, whether it's their partners or somebody very close to them, in the same kind of last moments of life. I'm just, curious if there is, if that's a thing that people do. Is there like a particular way in which people decide or are able to document those vulnerable moments? I don't know.
That's a very interesting question. I think at the moment of we don't think about those things, but it's definitely been done. Funny enough, as I was leaving from the opening, there was a dear friend of mine that had been wanting to give me this book for the longest time. I have a photo book for you. He ended up giving it to me as we were walking out, and I opened it when I got home, and it was pretty much a similar project where the photographer documented his partner's last year or so of life through Polaroids. And not only that, but then he managed to gather, I think between both of them, they wrote in a journal or something of the sort, and they've included that in this book. And so it's basically like a portrait of the person, which is what I'm trying to do with this project. I've been trying to think of ways where I can combine Juan's photos, the images that I've made, but also images that he's made, also with his writing, since he was also a writer, a poet, and his music because he was a musician. How do I bring all three together into one thing, one entity, to try to continue to keep him here and to share him with the world? And I'm sure there's been ways in which this has been done. Obviously there has to have been, because nothing's original anymore. But it's still something that I'm trying to think of how exactly to properly do it in the way that he would have done it. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it's definitely been done. I think for photographers, just because, again, we always carry our cameras everywhere we go. And most of the images for this project, I mean, the images here are made with my film camera, but a lot of them were taken with my phone. So it was
Right.
always like moments of, in the moment of, and he would do the same thing with me as well. So I remember, because I ended up with his phone and I went through his folder, and yeah, there were so many images of me, of us. So it's like, oh, okay, so we both did the same thing.
Right.
It was always about just, yeah, seizing the moment and, yeah, making it tangible.
And it's interesting too, and then I'll let you go, but it's interesting too to think about like how different cultures have different relationships with death and transition and the next, and how that, the kind of cultural context, the spiritual cultural context, would impact the art that is kind of made or represents that transition.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's, you know, I was thinking about that in a way when I asked that first question.
And it's interesting because obviously in other cultures there's the celebration,
Yeah,
right?
for
They
sure.
consider death a graduation.
Right.
Here, we're not
Sure.
taught how to properly process death. Death is still such a taboo subject.
Yeah.
Where if I've gotten, so this is something that my friends know, that I've gotten repercussions sometimes from people for posting images of Juan's to this day.
Wow. That is disrespectful somehow?
That is basically like, just let him go, he's already dead.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
It's happened more than once where I've
Yeah.
gotten people unfollowing me from social media just because I decided to share something
Yeah.
that, you know, of our anniversary or of his death anniversary or something of the sort. So I don't take it personally because I'm like, this is the problem that we have in our culture, that we
Yeah.
don't talk about death. We
Yeah.
don't discuss death. And then when it happens, we try to erase it from our lives. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this is going to be a little bit personal, but like Juan's family, for example, they all act like he never existed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like kind of Western colonial societies tend to be afraid of, ignore, want to erase,
Exactly.
right? And indigenous cultures have a whole different way. So, please, go ahead.
So I wanted to discuss maybe the images, one image in particular for you. Like obviously there's a lot of heartbreaking, very intense moments, but there are also moments of levity, which is very important
course,
to
right.
obviously have included in this exhibition.
Right.
So is there any image in particular that you'd like to talk about where there was like a moment of levity or magic along the way that you kind of illustrated in this body of work?
I mean, they're all in the room. There's like moments of happiness, there's moments of joy, there's moments of love, there's moments, you know, of our beginnings and things like that. I think my favorite image is the one of Juan sharing a joint with my mom.
That's a great one.
I think that's my most favorite of all because it was coincidentally, my mom was born on 420.
What are
You
you
know,
gonna do?
so exactly, you know, so she's like, of course, this is how we celebrate. And he had already quit smoking. He quit smoking like years prior, but he's like, Mama, let's just share a joint, it's your birthday. And that image is also very important too, because I think it was one of the last times that he got to celebrate my mom's birthday, because my mom, when she was given the news that he was transitioning, he passed away a week after her birthday. So she got to see him one last time on her birthday. And for 3 years, up until last year, she did not celebrate her birthday. It was too triggering for her. It was too intense. It was too hard. She just kept thinking, she kept saying, I'm mijo, because she's like, that's my son. She would always consider him as her son. So she just kept saying, no, there's no way I can celebrate my life when my son's not here.
Yeah.
So it's a very bittersweet image, but I remember that day how they were just so happy smoking together. They both got high. It was just hilarious seeing how they were just like bantering and everything, and seeing that love between them made me feel so full, you know.
Of course. Should we open it up to the audience? What do you think?
Sure.
Are there any? Look at all these people. This is great. Does anybody have a question for the artists? Comment? Yeah.
So sorry, but I question if you got any feedback from the employees of the establishment when you were in the hospital.
That's a very good
And
question.
also, a second part to that question, how do you think it would go if it were now? Like, do you think there would be more backlash about you filming or photographing in a hospital room
Right.
with this happening, especially with the case that was, because,
Right.
you know,
There was medical malpractice, which I didn't talk about. So yeah, there was backlash that day. Like there's one image, it's not in this series, but it's in the body of work where there's a nurse, you know, I guess putting an IV on him. And right before taking the photo, she's like, you can't have your camera in here. And I'm like, yes, I can, because that was the patient's wish. And I'm going to photograph this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an issue, too bad, because that's his wish. Like, you're going to deny that from him?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I told her. She stayed quiet, and I just continued doing my thing. The thing that really bothered me, and I guess that's why they didn't want me to portray it, they treated him like garbage during that time. They kept telling him he was going to die. They kept saying all these like atrocious things, and I'm like, I thought there were, whatever happened to bedside manners in the hospital? And obviously, if a person in such a vulnerable state hears those words, they start to then, everything just starts to really shut down in the body.
Yeah, yeah.
And he would tell me, it really hurts me when I hear these words. And I would curse out the doctors, I would fight with them, and I'm like, you have no right to say these things to him. Don't you see how he is? Like, all you're seeing is dollar signs. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
It really, really bothered me to see the lack of empathy and compassion. And then that made me think, are there other people going through this in here as well?
Right.
So that was in 2021, which was what, 4.5 years ago. I can imagine now it's probably worse.
Everything's worse.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's very true. No, it's absolutely true. There would be probably more of a backlash, and it's just so disheartening to see that. It's like humanity has lost its sense of humanity, which then I think about the body of work that I do, and it's like both this series and Broken Free touch upon that, upon subjects that are so difficult to talk about, subjects that are disregarded or swept under the rug. And it's like, but this is what makes us human, though.
Yeah.
It's that vulnerability.
Yeah.
And we're right now afraid of it.
Yeah. I mean, and your work just forces us all to confront that.
Right.
You know.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions, comments, thoughts?
Do you think this work will help normalize?
I'm sorry?
Will it help normalize it, bring much more into normal life?
Can you rephrase? I'm not understanding the question. I'm sorry.
Well, it's such a taboo subject, and you see very few photographs like yours, but actually many of us will go through that ourselves.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
And so do you think this might help almost destigmatize or normalize?
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe the better word is relate to not feel alienated, to feel seen, to feel understood. I would hope so. I mean, if there's anything that I would want out of this is, for people to relate. Because it's true, you're absolutely right. We are gonna go through it no matter what. We are gonna face loss, we are gonna face death, eventually or already. So how then do we, what's the right phrase I'm looking for? How do we navigate through it and not feel, sorry, I'm losing like my words, but okay, I'll say from my perspective. I felt very much alone when it happened. I felt very alienated. I felt I had to also alienate myself because people were giving me, I guess, platitudes and just toxic positivity and things like that, and I did not feel understood at all. Because the pain that I felt, it wasn't selfish, it was isolating. And I didn't want to feel isolated, but I also didn't want to feel that everyone needed to feel what I felt.
Right.
So if there's anything that I can do with this body of work is maybe provide a sense of comfort in a weird way, because it's not comforting, but it's like, hey, I understand you and we're here for you.
I actually think it is. Could imagine it would be very comforting for people who are going through, or loved ones who are going through similar kinds of experiences. As you were saying, that in fact, it like, in a way, well, first of all, it's beautiful, but beyond that, like legitimizes on some level, right, what somebody else is feeling. So like you said, it's relatable, it's less isolating and alienating.
Right, exactly.
Lessens that, for sure.
Yeah, it's that dichotomy with the system. As your question, how did the authorities feel about you taking pictures? Like they should have any say in the matter about one's choice or your choice to document this. It's like ludicrous that there'd even be a barrier.
Right, exactly.
But that's simply a kind of like result of our litigious society, right? Everyone's afraid of getting sued. Unfortunately, and if it's there in black and white, as they say, it's there in black and white.
Right.
Yeah.
I think also I just want to piggyback off of what he said, or what you guys were saying in regards to the question. It's relatable, but it's not your person on the walls. So it's like, it's relatable in a way that you're like, they also had great memories and they also had bad memories, and like that's not my person, so I can relate to it in a way that's like, it makes me feel comforted. It does.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, I know that someone else went through the same thing, and I can actually look at these photos and I'm not, sobbing and crying because I don't know him, but, we feel connected in a different way. And that's a beautiful part about it, that like for you can't even look at the photos. But for us, we can, and we don't know him, but we feel him through the images, and that's the best part. It is really comforting, and I do hope that it destigmatizes or helps to make people feel more comforted too. Definitely did so for me, so I hope that.
And a celebration, and it's
Yeah.
a celebration and bringing back to life one's music, his personality, which is also a universal thing, because all our people have those things that they manifest and is important to us, so we connect with those.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm working on a similar-ish project for a relative of mine who passed away, and it's been really hard for me to like continue working on it steadily over time. Like I take really long breaks. And so I would love to hear about your process and how you were able to actually get it from like the idea to like, oh, I'm processing grief, but I'm gonna keep doing it, and then I'm gonna share it with people, and then I'm gonna exhibit it, and like, just what did you do?
These images were never meant to be seen in public. To be quite honest, they were not. They were supposed to be something, well, honestly, I didn't even know what I was gonna do with them, But being that he was a personality, a well-known personality, a well-known DJ, writer, just somebody that was always in the public eye, it felt wrong for me to also keep these images away from the public eye. Now, I'm not anywhere near done with this project. This is, I want to say, the first iteration, the first time I ever show it in a public setting. It's only been, like in the last 3-4 years, it's only been some people that have seen the series, or some people have read his notebooks, or some people, well, everyone can hear his music, it's everywhere, but it's still a work in progress. And I think that, thanks to Alon and Rebecca, like we sat down, and Takara as well, Mr. Jesus up there, whatever, right? He's like, so, they helped me kind of like make a cohesive series, mini-series, aside from the entire series, right? Because the end goal, it's like, again, it's gonna be some type of memoir where I can bring all these types of pieces together to form one big puzzle that is Juan's essence, right? This is just a piece of it, and I think because it's like it can speak for itself. It tells a story. It does have a narrative. It does have like a sequence. It's not, thanks to them, I also realized, oh, it shouldn't just be those 2 weeks, like the images that I took only those 2 weeks. It should be the 12 years that you were both together. Let's take some pieces from here, from there. It's okay if they're cell phone photos, if they're this, if they're on Instagram, whatever. Let's just piece it all together and create a story about this connection, about love, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. You know, it's that. So it's okay to take your time, and it's gonna take some time, especially because it has to do with somebody that has passed, and that's totally fine. Like, there's no deadline, there's no timeline. You know, take your time with it, sit with it, take your breaks. I sure as hell take my breaks. I definitely do. There are times where as Lorena said, I cannot look at these images, you know, or I can't even read certain things. And I realize that's just part of grief. Grief is a wave, you know, it's not linear, it comes and it goes. So take your time with it, and I think it'll come to you the best way how you want to honor this person. Yeah, you're welcome.
I mean, you remind me of something that we talked a lot about, the three of us, and also with Carl, is that we wanted, I think collectively, the show to be about your relationship, right? Rather than him alone and his passing.
Right.
But I just want to kind of highlight that. That's why the show is called Love Never Dies, right? Because the idea is the kind of profound nature of the trust that he showed you and gave you to ask you to document those moments, right?
And I know if the tables were turned, he would have done the same for me.
I'm sure.
And that's the thing, like I mentioned it the day of the opening, just because someone transitions doesn't mean that their life stops there.
Right.
You know, if we continue sharing their stories, if we continue sharing photos, if we continue speaking, even saying their name, that's us keeping their essence and their love alive.
It's beautiful. Well, on that note, I'm going to suggest we ask our choir to sing. Is that okay? Are we ready for that? I just feel like that was the right note.
Yeah,
so
thank
we are
you.
like so fortunate this evening to have with us the Threshold Choir, which is part of Miami Sound Choir, which Paola is actually in. And so her friends and colleagues have come here to sing for us. I don't know if we want to move into the room where the images are, or if we should just go ahead. No, you guys decide. You're the experts. We could just go right here since you're all as you wish. Go in the room. Go ahead. Let's do it, please.